Almost every man I've ever hung out with has compulsively told me about their porn addiction at some point. Can we talk about it? Can we talk about it? We're gonna go trade with Joe. He never wants to trade.
No, he just wants me to pay. It seems like he's capitalist Joe. Leaving consumer Joe.
Leaving toxic consumer Joe. Literally so fast, let me play you one card. The freaking store. Okay. This isn't like gender war nonsense, whatever. It's more just like, how can this happen so many times and how can we stop this from happening again? Historically, I've gone into any budding new acquaintanceship wanting to know everything and anything and everything about that person. Really sad to say that, though that is a core part of who I am, I'll have to like step back a little bit on that. I don't know, I just suddenly really care about being asked like basic questions. It's always me asking all these questions because I genuinely want to know this person, not even inherently in any sort of like romantic sense, but because I want to know this person to be decent, to be a decent person who listens. Also because I think we all seek a little bit more connection than we actually get. And so you know what, I find I love meeting new people and, you know, getting to know others. And then it's them not asking me anything, or they do ask me something and then it's just so obvious they're not paying attention, like they're just not there. Because then it's like, why are we here? It's also like dude, I see it. You're not pulling a fast one here. You're not doing anything. You're nothing. And I don't necessarily mean that about like one-time hookups. I still think it's a little fucked up, honestly, but you know, if you're just looking to bone and you guys are in the same headspace about that, there's nothing wrong with just being like, okay, this is very superficial for us. Sure, okay. But I'm talking about people expressing wanting more. I'm talking about begging for a relationship. I'm talking about past partners, even. A few months ago, I was looking for this guy who was like way not over his ex, and I didn't really realize how deep it went until it was too late. He brought it up so casually the first time we hung out that I was literally like, okay, so, you know, you're over this is like the lore drop and we're gonna be friends, that's gonna be great. But I made it clear that I just wanted to hook up and he said he was fine with that. But then every time we would bone, he would like ask to be together, and it just got to the point where we would stop and I'd be like, I can't. Dude. And then we'd continue, which is weird. That is objectively weird of us. I know that. It's also like that first time we hung out, I brought up exes too. I'm not saying like I didn't, but it became a compulsion for him almost. Like every time we hung out, it became only about her. Like it started with everything only going back to her, and then it was like every single thing was about her. Anyways, I say all that because as time went on and we were talking and hooking up, I started noticing like tiny similarities about these stories I was being told about her and myself, things I have gone through, ways I've been in the past, things I have grown out of, and things that I need to grow out of. And so I asked him if he thought this was a continuation of that same cycle. And he said no, I was completely different. I believe there was one time I like told a story, and then either later that day when we were hanging out or maybe the next time we hung out, he brought up a story about her that was like eerily similar. And I was like, okay, I think someone's in denial. I'm not even trying to say that I'm like her, but I think I was akin to his perception of her. There are definitely similarities. There was this avoidance with this compulsion at a subconscious level. I think his brain was filtering that out in favor of what I was offering, which was honestly like being a mom, being a mommy. And why do I say motherly instead of like a therapist type? I say it because I think I can be a coddler. I think I give pretty sound advice and I give like criticism where it's needed, I'm honest. But I also am a firm believer that people are more receptive when you lead with grace and empathy. And people deserve to be given the benefit of the doubt, and people deserve to, if they're feeling pain in some way, work through that in some way. And I just find I'm someone who's super comfortable doing that with people. I think the problem with the coddling, where the coddling comes in, I think I'm a lot nicer than I should be upon initial reaction to some of these things that like literally every single man. I feel I'm like a priest here. I'm a confessional here. That being, I might just start berating people. It might come down to me berating a man if he says even one weirdo type slip-up thing. I think motherly also just in the fact that I've done like so many chores for so many men. made so many breakfasts. Because that's what I would do for like literally anyone and everyone I'm just getting to know as a friend. Or even just like long term as a friend, you know? If I'm being hosted somewhere or if I am hosting, I want to be the exemplary example of what that is. I want to be a respectful guest. I want to be a fun, loving host. XYZ. I want people to be comfortable and to know that being around me is like being on freaking vacation, baby. Men are conflating me being a decent person with like, oh hell yeah, I just reeled this chick and now I'm leaving for work and when she wakes up she's gonna make my bed before leaving. You know, and do you know how many times that's happened? And they get like weird and obsessive about it. It's really off-putting. It's really off-putting because that's what confuses me too. It's like, obviously you have no interest in me or my interests or who I am at a core identity. You have no clue who I am. But you want to keep it, you're like you keep inviting me to hang out. To talk about your feelings even. Like, to talk about your feelings? You're inviting me to hang out to talk about your feelings? I'm mommy. I'm literally mommy. Someone basically confessed to murder. I was much younger, which I didn't realize until literally today how serious and fucked up that is. I'm just appalled. I'm just appalled. I will say part of this is also just who and what I've attracted into my life thus far. I haven't treated myself the best and I deserve better, and I just haven't used my discernment and my intuition the way I should be. I'm not gonna blame myself entirely for everything I've been through by any means when it comes to like men and stuff, but it's just no more. We can't do this anymore. This can't happen anymore. I'm done and I've been done. I have this ongoing theory about men and confusing lust for love, but also confusing resentment for lust. And I think also that ties back to a motherly element. I know I'm sounding a little Freudian here, but I really do think there's something there. I do think a lot of men are coddled by their mothers, and I think that is why, for some of them, at a subconscious level, that is the epitome of love. But I would say there's like pretty obviously also something to the love you see in the household is the love that you will reflect out in the world unless you like consciously do changes. I'm not saying that like because you had an abusive father, for instance, that's gonna make you an abusive husband. No, by any means, that's not what I mean. But rather, I think it's at least in smaller ways. It's at least in the subconscious. That was like during your formative years, that was imprinted onto you. And that takes probably therapy to unlearn in some way. Don't go to the institutions if you don't want, I guess, but... And I think a lot of men are not afforded the opportunity to think that deeply about this sort of thing. By the design of their own society. I think when I come in genuinely wanting to know them on that level and being not only the coddler, but, you know, being that interested in being like, tell me. I think that is just, I think it strikes the mommy chord subconsciously. And I think it then leads to, I don't want to say, it's not dependence, but rather an emotional outpour that is not necessarily appropriate. And this is also on me, like I need better boundaries obviously, but that's what I'm saying. It's done. We're done. It's over. It's over. There's definitely also something to be said about like the Madonna whore complex here, because not getting to know me on that level allows me to still be the whore in their eyes, like subconsciously. But the minute that you get to know that person, the Madonna, the mother, you know, and so I think that there's a weird intertwined state here where they're not really getting to know me, but because I'm giving the appearance of that by wanting to know them, and them assuming that automatically means it's two ways because we're just not taught to socialize the way we need to necessarily. It just gets conflated, it gets tricky in the brain, I think. I'm also just a Cancer rising and a dominatrix, so you know, it's not like crazy, like I get why. I'm gonna be your mommy. Oh my god, bro, I can't do that anymore. And honestly for me too, like now that I think about it, it's me enacting my inner mommy. Trying to entertain peace and trying to really understand someone. I don't think that inherently makes you mommy, but I think in terms of my mommy. I don't know. Felt so gorgeous recently. Let me pull you one tarot card before you go, doll. Well, howdy do. Congrats. You're receiving help.